But I'm going to show a couple movies just to kind of get us inspired to write, but also just a little bit on the format of script writing. So you can find free script writing software anywhere at Studio. I'm using Studio Binder. You can set up a free account, and it might be good to do that so we can all, because it's a good way to communicate with each other as well when we do our project. But let's just, let me do that. I'm going to show you a couple videos first. So hold on one second here.
You took attendance, right?
Yep, we're good. All right. You guys started playing Christmas music yet?
Yeah, no. Yes, please. Join us. Be part of the group. I don't know if I can turn him up anymore. He's 100% on there.
All right, I'm looking for a very important email where I emailed myself all these links that were very helpful. And it's not helpful if I can't find it. There it is. Okay. That going. All right, so let's just take a look at this fine example. One second, skip ads. Okay, so this is just a small example of just kind of putting our idea into script format. It's kind of an interesting little story, but just on a short film. So it's kind of a fun way to do this. So let's just watch this together. I'm going to share the screen and I'll have to share the audio as well. Oh, no, that's not the right one. One second. All right. You guys see this okay?
So you're trying to write a short film. There's a lot of bad information out there about writing short films. When people want to write movies, one of the common
Is it coming through okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
pieces of advice is watch movies. But that doesn't really work with short films. Short films are their own breed. They are written and made for all different reasons. Many times it's for a director or cinematographer to show off their ability. Or maybe the short is really just an ad for something. And sometimes the writers seemingly abandon what they know about writing dramatic narratives when they go to write a short film. In this video, I want to change all of that. I want to give you a clear understanding of how you can write a strong dramatic narrative in a short film. Let's begin. First off, I want to debunk a few myths surrounding writing short films. Myth 1. Short films are too short to be deeply meaningful and dramatic. This is completely wrong. Short films can absolutely be meaningful and dramatic if you focus on building them on fundamental story elements. Myth 2. There isn't enough time to set up the story. Many writers believe they have to skip having any setup in their short film because they only have a few pages to work with. This is not true. Setup is necessary to a story. Even if you start right in the middle of the action, the audience is going to need to know what's going on, who people are, and why the action is happening. If they don't learn these things quickly, they will disengage from the story. Myth 3. Stunning cinematography, witty dialogue, and cool concepts will create a good short film even if the story isn't good. This is absolutely wrong, yet I see this in short films all the time. Even in a short film, the story is still the core element. Audiences will always grow bored quickly if there's no story at the core, even if the film looks gorgeous. However, rather than simply showing you an example and explaining why that example works, I want to take a short film that already exists and reconstruct it from the ground up, just like you would be doing when writing your short. The short film I'm going to use is Stutterer. Now I want to make it clear that I did not make this film. This short film was written and directed by Benjamin Cleary. I am using this short film to build an example of a good process you can adopt to create a short film that has a strong dramatic narrative. Stutterer is linked below, but this might actually work better if you've never seen it before. Also, and I'm only going to say this once, this is not the only way to build a story or a short film. Take what's helpful, leave what isn't. This isn't a formula. This is an examination of why stories work to help you write your own story. The writer may not have used this exact method to build this short film. However, this process is one that has been extremely beneficial to me, and hopefully will be beneficial to you as well. Let's begin with finding an idea. Ideas can be all sorts of things. They can be a scene, a character, a line of dialogue, a concept, or a philosophical idea that you want to examine. For this short film, let's start with a very simple idea. The story is about a man who stutters. This is a good place to start. We now have a concept. We don't have our story yet, but we have the beginning of an idea. Now we can move on to building our main character and what they believe. Just like a longer form story, a short film needs philosophical, ethical, or moral dilemmas. This is why we become invested in characters. It's not about their ability to solve problems or the fact that they are in danger. It's about what the characters believe and the actions they take because of those beliefs that engage us with the story. It's good to start by building out the main character, the person that your story will revolve around. There may be many characters in your story, but usually there will be one character that pushes the story forward more than anyone else. In this story, our main character is a man who stutters. His name is Greenwood. Greenwood's stutter is an external problem. But this isn't where the conflict of the story is. We need to give Greenwood some beliefs. What does he believe about his stutter that holds him back in life? We need to answer this question so we can begin to build strong story conflict. But this is hard to figure out without knowing what the character wants and why they want it. So let's talk about what Greenwood wants. Greenwood wants to be in love. Okay, this is a start, but let's go deeper than that. Greenwood wants a deep, intimate relationship with someone. This is a strong desire. Now that we know what Greenwood wants, we can talk more about what he believes. What beliefs does Greenwood hold that will stop him from getting what he wants? We have the character's want and this major external obstacle. We can use these together to help build out Greenwood's philosophical beliefs and the philosophical conflict. Greenwood believes that his stutter will stop him from connecting deeply with others. He feels disconnected from the world and believes his stutter will always hold him back. He is wallowing in self-pity. So now we have our central character and the central idea behind the story. These are the guiding ideas of almost every great dramatic story. A character struggling with their own beliefs as they come into conflict with the world. Now that we have an understanding of what the story is about philosophically, we can begin building the other characters in the story. Okay, so this is a love story. Greenwood wants to find a deep, intimate relationship. So he needs a love interest. Now we bring in Ellie. Ellie is Greenwood's love interest, but she can't just be the love interest. Why? Because that's not what the story is about. The story falls flat if Ellie is simply the love interest, because then she wouldn't be adding to the philosophical conflict. She should hold beliefs that oppose Greenwood's. Ellie accepts herself for who she is. Ellie is willing to be open and honest. Ellie is not wallowing in self-pity. These are the beliefs that Greenwood must accept. And now Greenwood and Ellie's beliefs are in conflict. If this is the case, then we need to see proof of Ellie's acceptance of these ideas. Ellie needs to have an external problem just like Greenwood.
Sorry, add.
But we don't know what it is yet. We'll come back to this. Now we have two major characters, but let's add one more. Greenwood's father. Greenwood shouldn't have a father in the story for no reason. This character should also add to the philosophical conflict. Greenwood now has evidence of someone in his life that accepts him for who he is. This is how the father character adds to the philosophical conflict. So now we have our concept, our philosophical conflict, and our characters. Now we need to think about how we can structure a story in a way that is dramatic, interesting, and pressures our main character in the best way possible. Let's look at narrative structure. Short films aren't any more difficult to write than feature films. However, some people get confused because they try to apply structural formulas and rules that only work with feature-length screenplays to short films. As a storyteller and a writer, you should be focusing on the fundamental elements of how a story works. And that's why I want to structure this short film using Dan Harmon's story circle. The story circle is a great tool because it isn't constricted by a certain length of time. Rather than existing to hit certain beats on certain pages of a feature film, the story circle focuses on the fundamental elements of the story.
So this is a little different than what so far we've kind of done a couple different strategies. We talked about the hero's journey and putting together a story like that. And then we put it into another model with the beat sheet that we did. So this is one other one. This is a very popular tool that a lot of people use. So let's just see how this could work with our film so far.
The story circle breaks down into 4 quarters and 4 points, which create a dramatic story. Number 1, the character is in a zone of comfort. Number 2, but they want something.
So this is like the ordinary world and something like that. So it's very similar to what we've already done.
Number 3, they enter an unfamiliar situation. Number 4, they adapt to it. Number 5, they get what they wanted. Number 6, they pay a heavy price for it. Number 7, they return to their familiar situation. Number 8, having changed. I've talked extensively about the story circle in my previous videos because I believe it is the best structural tool for the screenwriter because it moves away from screenwriting formulas and focuses on the innate and natural elements of a dramatic story. For an in-depth look at the different ways the story circle can be helpful to a screenwriter, check out my video on story structure, linked below. So we already have the first 2 points on the story circle. We have a character, Greenwood, and we know what he wants, to be in a deep, intimate relationship. And we also know what holds him back, his beliefs about his stutter. Now let's look at point 3. We need to place Greenwood into an unfamiliar situation. This is where Ellie fits in. The unfamiliar situation needs to specifically challenge Greenwood's beliefs. This short film uses the fact that Greenwood and Ellie have been chatting online for 6 months, and now Ellie is in London and wants to meet. This is a great unfamiliar situation. For Greenwood to get what he wants, it will mean confronting his deeply held beliefs. This is a fantastic dilemma. What will Greenwood do? So now we move to 4. Greenwood must adapt to this new situation. Now that we know who Greenwood is, we understand how he would react. At first, he simply doesn't want to respond. He wants to go on the date, yet he doesn't want to reveal that he has a stutter. He wants connection, but feels completely constricted. Now let's move to 5. The character gets what they want. Greenwood should decide to meet. This is what he wants. No matter how scared he is, he does want this. So he takes a chance.
Hey Eddie, so sorry I haven't gotten back to you. If you're still in London and by some chance still want to meet me, I'd love to meet you.
However, at 6, Greenwood will pay for this. One of the biggest important elements of a good drama is that character's action must be challenged. Characters heading towards what they want or getting what they want should always come at a cost. This keeps the conflict heightened and the story moving forward. So Ellie will agree to meet, because this is who she is. She is one who has accepted herself and is willing to take a chance. However, now that Ellie has agreed to meet, Greenwood's walls are going to have to come down. He won't be able to hide. Now we go to 7, return to a familiar situation. So this is where a lot of people get caught up. They are confused as to what the return is. Sometimes it can be a literal return to a place. Sometimes it can be a return to the balance before the conflict began. And that's what I want to focus on here. The return is bringing the philosophical conflict to its breaking point and reaching catharsis. Greenwood must go to meet Ellie. This is the biggest challenge to his beliefs. If this goes poorly, he will retreat back into his old beliefs. However, if it goes well, then he may become a changed person. If the goal is to push the drama as hard as we can, then it must seem like there's no way this can go well. And then when it does go well, the audience is relieved and experiences catharsis. Not just because a date went well, but because the philosophical ideas of self-acceptance, honesty, and risk-taking are confirmed by the story. So now we need to build our
The Ridge wallet. It's a minimalist metal wallet designed to hold everything you need. They've got over 30,000 5-star reviews.
ending.
Awesome.
Remember when we were building the character of Ellie? We never gave her an external obstacle that she has already conquered to show her philosophical beliefs. So let's do that now. When Greenwood goes to the date, he must realize that Ellie is someone who has her own problems, yet has accepted herself and is willing to be honest. And because this is a love story and we want the ending to resonate, Ellie's external problem should complement Greenwood's external problem, as if they were made to be together. So if Greenwood can't speak, then maybe Ellie shouldn't be able to hear. And this is how this short film builds its ending. Greenwood can't speak, but he realizes that Ellie is deaf. And then at number 8, Greenwood is changed. Being honest and taking a risk worked in his favor. He will accept Ellie for who she is, and she will do the same for him. Greenwood's beliefs have radically shifted. So now we have the core of the story, but this isn't everything. We haven't actually written it out, figured out dialogue, made stylistic choices, and so on. But this is our foundation. Everything that comes after this point will be built on a strong foundation because the core elements of a dramatic story are here. Now, was this easier than what the story building process is actually like? Yes, of course. Having the finished product and being able to work backwards is always easier. When ideas come to us, they are usually messier than this, and your story will go through multiple drafts. However, I wanted to do this so that you have a framework that helps you get through the hard work of building the core of your story. Now that we have the core, I want to do some analysis on how Benjamin Cleary, the writer and director, actually brings these elements together.
Hello? Sir, can you hear me?
So the first thing we see in here is a man with a stutter struggling to speak on the phone.
Hi, my name's Greenwood. I'm calling about my bill.
30 seconds into the short, we know who our main character is, we know his name, and we know his major external problem. Already from this, we can assume that his stutter is something that he feels holds him back in life. Then we see Greenwood practicing sign language. This further shows us that his stutter is a major element in his life that he wants to overcome. It also becomes part of his character, and a bit of setup for the end of the story when he finally meets Ellie. 1 minute into the short, we see Greenwood on hold with a company. We can see that Greenwood fears these situations that many people would consider easy, and that his stutter seems to be constantly on his mind.
You're through to Umbrella Broadband. Thank you for holding. Your call is important to us.
Now we go to the scene where Greenwood messages back and forth with Ellie. Again, this isn't just because Greenwood needs a love interest. This accomplishes 2 major things. 1, it shows us that Ellie and Greenwood have been in an online relationship for 6 months. And 2, it shows us that Greenwood wants to be with this girl in real life, whether he is consciously thinking about it or not. In the next scene, we see that Greenwood is a typographer. which doesn't really add to or take away from the core of the story. It's more of a stylistic choice. Then we go to this snap judgment scene,
Snap Judgment 1224.
which happens a couple more times over the course of the short. These sorts of moments are where you as the writer begin to decide how you want your story to feel. Moments like these are character moments, where we stop and learn about Greenwood. Now we meet Greenwood's father. Greenwood tells an interesting quote to his father. The way his father reacts after Greenwood recites the quote tells us a lot about who this man is.
I like that one.
We see that he accepts Greenwood. He is not judging him or angry with him for having a stutter. He simply accepts him. And like I explained before, this is his philosophical role in the story. This also shows that it is not enough that Greenwood's father accepts Greenwood for who he is. Greenwood must learn to accept himself. This is also the first time we sit with Greenwood as he says a full sentence. This scene helps us empathize and understand how difficult it can be for him to speak.
Music's the pleasure, the human soul experiences from counting.
Now we enter the unfamiliar situation. Ellie asks to meet in person. Let's talk about why this moment works. When Greenwood reads this message, he gets scared, and we get scared for him as the audience. The fear in the audience's mind isn't, it's going to be hard for him to speak on the date. The fear in the audience's mind is, she won't want to be with him after she realizes that he has a stutter. And those two are very different things. One is simply about an external problem. The second is about what Greenwood and the audience believe. Do you see the difference? That difference is everything. If you don't nail that, no one will care about your story. No one will care about simple external obstacles. They only care about how your character's beliefs come into conflict in the story. So now we go to another scene with Greenwood's father talking on the phone with the company from the beginning.
Your company is not communicating with him.
This adds to the shame that Greenwood feels. If he can't even operate as an independent person, then how can he function in a relationship? The internal voice he uses to judge other people exists because he judges himself. Greenwood decides to follow his current beliefs. He tries to find a way to skip meeting with Ellie.
Okay. Hey, Elle, sorry only getting back to you now. Amazing that you're in London. I'd love to meet with you, but the thing is, my bloody cousins are visiting, and No.
But then Greenwood makes a decision. He decides to meet with Ellie. He quickly writes a message and hits send. This is his biggest move towards getting what he wants. 8 minutes into the short, Greenwood tries to break up an intense argument between a couple and gets beaten up for it. This shows us another moment of how his stutter holds him back in different situations. Now Greenwood does one of his snap judgments on himself, and in this scene, he states the philosophical conflict that has been at the center for the entire story.
Snap Judgment 1226. Reclusive typographer, invisible to the naked eye. Communication skills of an infant. Excels in the art of self-pity.
And then Ellie finally responds and is still willing to meet with Greenwood, which is exactly what Greenwood wants, and also the scariest thing that could happen. Greenwood prepares for the date. This is where the short film ties in the scene where Greenwood gets beaten. Listen to Greenwood's thoughts.
Still feels like a first date. My nose, cosmetic surgery. Yeah, it's weird. A little bit of work on.
Greenwood is still trying to cling onto his old beliefs. He is still trying to think up a convenient lie rather than be honest. This adds to the conflict as Greenwood heads to the date. And then, the climax. Ellie is deaf, which isn't just a reveal for the sake of being a reveal. This reveal has a major impact on the philosophical conflict in the story. That's what makes the reveal impactful. Greenwood's external problem isn't a problem at all. he is able to be honest with her about his stutter. She will accept him for who he is, and he will do the same for her. In every scene of this short film, Greenwood is dealing with his external flaw and his internal limiting beliefs. Sometimes that conflict feels big, like trying to intervene in the couple's argument. Sometimes that conflict feels small, like Greenwood sitting by himself thinking. Either way, Greenwood is constantly being pressed by what he believes and how those beliefs shape his life. This is a fantastic short film. It has strong philosophical conflict, good structure, and an ending that works perfectly. While this is a case study, there's a lot of elements that you can apply to stories that are not in this genre. When you look back at the process we covered, hopefully you can see how these ideas can work with all sorts of stories with all sorts of lengths and genres. And by understanding those fundamental elements of story, you can write your short film as a strong narrative drama. Hello, I hope you liked the video. For an in-depth dive at the different concepts I've covered in this video, I recommend you check out my screenwriting playlist, linked on the...
All right. Okay, so that was just it, you know, it was educational. It was good, but it already it talked about things that we've already accomplished together. I just thought it was a pretty inspirational thing on getting started. So the next thing I want to show you is a quicker video, but this is more the format of writing scripts. This is just a really brief overview, but we're going to use this as we jump into writing our script together. Whoa, whoa, whoa. No, 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 no. That's not right. 1 second here. I think I have to re-find it. Sorry. Let me just find that real quick, like. Okay, sorry, 1 second here. Okay, let's just watch this. 1 second here. Let's do a quick video of this, and then we'll kind of go through these in detail. Okay, here we go.
You got ideas for a killer. You know the story cold. But sometimes the screenplay format can stifle your creativity. What if you had some sort of guide? But why do we even need to format? We format because screenplays are written to be produced. Formatting correctly isn't stylistic. It's necessary for first ADs to break down your script into characters, props, costumes, etc. in software like Studio Binder. All scenes start with a scene heading, or slug line, to tell the reader where the action is happening. A slug line is a location followed by a time. Your location can be anywhere, from a specific place, to a general idea, to a totally real boarding school. Time is usually what time of day it is, like this, or that. And continuous if the action carries onward from the previous scene, and use flashbacks if you're writing for Westworld. The first part of a slug line states whether your location is inside or out. If your location is outside, it'd be an exterior, and get the abbreviation EXT. Slug lines can be both, as is often the case with moving vehicles. But every location needs action. Consider this scene from Spider-Man.
Pete?
How strange. There's nobody here.
But what would it look like on a screenplay? Did you imagine something like this? The key to successful action is to keep it visual and in the present tense. Leave interior thoughts to the novels. While there are no hard and fast rules for capitalization, there are a few guidelines. As a rule of thumb, you want to capitalize character names the first time they appear, sound effects and interjections, and important details, like a prop or a plot twist. Formatting dialogue is pretty straightforward.
Ezekiel 25:17. The path of the righteous man is beset on all sides by the iniquities of the selfish and the tyranny of evil men.
You have your character ID, followed by the words they utter. It's pretty simple. Throw an extension next to a character ID to tell us how the dialogue is heard. When a character speaks over the action, on a radio or walkie-talkie, when the characters speak off-screen, but we can't see them yet. You know when dialogue starts in the scene before it, like this?
So now that NASA can talk to me, they won't shut up. They want constant...
That's called pre-lap. It's marked just like any other extension. But if you want to show how a character says a line, you use a parenthetical. Going right under a character ID, a center-justified parenthetical changes how characters speak. Like this.
No, God! No, God, please, no!
Transitions. Put transitions right justified between two scenes. The most popular transition is cut to. It emphasizes how quickly the editor should move on to the next scene. But there's plenty of other transitions writers use. And if you want the editor to cut between two scenes consistently, usually for a phone call, that's called an intercut. It goes right where you put the transition. If you're staying in one location and want to move within it or skip ahead, you use subheaders to move locations within a scene. Formatted after an action line, you press enter and capitalize. Why don't we see some examples?
Voice.
What is going on? Did we lose the video?
Yes.
Okay, let me try to get that back here. Okay. We back on? Can we see it?
Yes.
Okay.
Formatted after an action line, you press enter and capitalize. Why don't we see some examples?
Voice. A sign. Something.
Don't worry, Andy's gonna take care of us. I guarantee it.
But to be clear, a subheading isn't the same as a shot. Exterior, freeway overpass, day.
Anyway, I got places to be, a face to fix, and oh!
Formatted in all caps, like an action line, a shot directs our attention to a visual. To start a montage, enter these words above the short scenes you want to string together, and end it the same way you started it. Got lyrics? Then it's important to keep in mind that one page equals roughly 1 minute of screen time. Since lyrics take up little page space but require much time, one option is to space out the lyrics on the page. The other option is to describe the music sequence instead of listing out each lyric, like Damien Chazelle did in La La Land.
A waste of a lovely night.
You say there's nothing here. Well, let's make something clear. I think I'll be the one to make that call.
Chirons. They're the text that appears over the screen. Under a scene heading, you start an action line with the word chiron in all caps and put the text after. Some screenwriters use the word title instead.
It absolutely makes sense. You're a janitor who snakes toilets with his bare hands. So my hands.
Now that you know the ins and outs of screenplay format, you can get back to telling your story. It's time to get writing. Enjoy this video? Like it and subscribe for more.
All right, so that I thought was helpful. So what I've done is, if you guys want to check out Studio Binder, this is a great resource, and it's got free stuff on here that we can use to, so let me just show you this. I'm gonna kind of walk you through how to create this account, because I'd love for us to get on this together. So let me share this screen. So after I log in, this is what comes up. So I already created a project, Mr. Flack the robot. And but if I were to log out, let me just log out so you can kind of see what it looks like. To just go to Studio Binder, I do have my own account here. It's just Launchpad Studios. But maybe it won't let me log out here. Maybe not. Okay, well, anyway, once you log in, you can go to this, it's kind of like your dashboard, and you can create a new project. So that's what I did so far. I created this project, titled it Mr. Flack the Robot. So if I, what's going on there? Not letting me do a lot of stuff here. So let me just click on Mr. Flack the Robot. Okay, so here's the project details. Sorry, I gotta get out of this stuff. This is, why? I don't want you to be there. Okay, Mr. Flack the Robot. So I can add more details here, but then I can just go right to writing the script. Okay. So I'm going to hit that. And this is what I have so far. Okay. So see how Studio Binder kind of helps you with, this is your slug line, first of all. Your slug line is just setting up the scene. Let's see. So if I go back to this, these slug lines. Let me just click on this. So this is an example of a slug line. Okay, so you see how it's either interior or exterior, and then Mort's kitchen day. So if I go back to our project here, so it's interior, and then we can make it look just like this if we want to. So classroom, so we can say high school classroom. All right. And then it is day. So then see how it kind of gives us these options. So obviously it's right during the day or maybe afternoon. Let's do afternoon because you've had lunch, the classes, and that just another reason why students feel a little sleepy after lunch, okay? So that's our slug line. That's what our slug line looks like. Then after our slug line, we've got action lines, okay? So here's an example. This is an example of an action line. So Mort chops carrots at the counter. Becky leans against the fridge and fiddles with the Rubik's Cube. Hey, they've got a Rubik's Cube too. Okay, so what should our action line be here? So this time, so see how it moves right from screen setting now to an action line. So we can say Mr. Flack a somewhat monotone teacher finishes a lecture on reducing fractions or something. Okay. So that's probably a good example. It kind of sets up the scene, but let's get a little bit more in depth. And what did we say for our? We said students struggle to stay awake. Okay. So then I think we need an excuse. So maybe we still hear Mr. Flack teaching in the background. Okay. And then this is where we start to introduce our other characters. But let me bring up what we have so far. Hopefully we still have it. It's not there. All right, I think we got it. Don't panic. Don't panic. It's here. Don't look at people's grades. Don't look at people's grades. Okay, so we did this. Don't panic. There it is. Yay. All right, so this is our act one. It's in a classroom, schooly vibe, winter gloom, students trying to stay awake as teacher finishes his lecture, okay? So not a lot happening, so the script can be, and by the way, you remember that magical formula that I told you about? You can usually tell if you write a script correctly, then one page usually equals 1 minute of a movie, okay? So if you have a 120-page script, then that's about a 2-hour movie. Okay. So, and some pages will be less and some pages will be more, but on the average, it usually works out to 1 page per minute of movie time. Okay. So if we want to do a 20-minute short film, then we need to have about 20 pages of script. Okay. And the deal is the script pages, I don't know if you've ever read a screenplay, but they don't take up, there's a lot of spacing and things like that. So it doesn't take much to read through a script. So there's not a lot going on unless there's this heavy dialogue here and there, then it's going to be more. But so Mr. Flack is a boring teacher. So this kind of sets it up, and students struggle to stay awake. Gabe, a good student, looks around and is disappointed in his fellow students who are falling asleep. Asher, we put Clash Reject, but really, I don't know. I don't know if he's much of a reject or that he is just like, he's not very respectful. I don't know. Is solving a Rubik's Cube. Gabe eventually falls asleep. Okay. So that's where we land. And we can probably include that in all of that. But let's look at our example. See how they begin with some dialogue right away in this other example here. Okay. But let's go back to our after our action lines. What comes next? Well, we have our dialogue, but we're not ready for dialogue. So we're gonna keep going with our action lines here. Okay. So let's keep going. Students struggling to stay awake. And then we're going to say Gabe. And remember, when we first mention our character, we're going to do all caps. So I'm going to rewrite Mr. Flack in all caps. A somewhat monotone teacher finishes a lecture on reducing fractions. Students are struggling to stay awake. Gabe, a semi-good student, looks around and is disappointed in his fellow. Maybe we'll just take that out. Gabe, a semi-good student, struggles. It's not Stuggles. Struggles, but gives in to his tiredness. Is that a word? Probably not.
Exhaustion.
Exhaustion, right. His boredom and exhaustion. And eventually falls asleep. Okay. All right. So far, there's not any dialogue. There's just action here, and that's okay. So this is kind of setting up the story and talking about a couple different characters so far, but now we're going to bring in another one. So this is, we kind of get this dream sequence or a little thing going. So now what I want to do is I want to do another scene. So this is time that has passed. So we're still interior, and it's okay to write the same exact thing. Classroom, afternoon. Okay. So maybe down here, we're going to do like a transition. Okay. So the transition is going to be dissolve to or something. Let's dissolve to is kind of a good way to think about it. And this should be 2. some reason it did that. Dissolve to this thing. So do you guys see what's happening here? And this becomes a little bit more natural as you go. And we're going to say Gabe is, what's the word? Awoken? Is that a word?
Awakened.
Awakened.
Startled awake.
Startled awake.
Awakened by a wadded paper thrown by Asher.
I thought it was Mr. Black.
And annoying. Isn't it, don't we do that next? Let's just make sure we have it. Where did it go? There it is. Okay, Mr. Flack finishes the lecture and returns to his desk. Mr. Flack closes his book loudly and Gabe awakes. Okay. So we could do that, or we could say Asher, he's awoken by the Asher throwing a piece of paper to Gabe. Which one? Do we need both?
Sometimes he wakes up for
A little louder?
Maybe he'll wake up like by like me throwing a piece of paper at the back of his head, and he'll be startled awake, and then he'll work, and I'll say, "Look at the paper."
Okay. All right, I like that. So let's go back to our script. Asher, an annoying not an annoying. Another student who usually keeps to himself, maybe. Wadded paper thrown by Asher. Another student who usually keeps to himself. Gabe unwads. I don't know if that's the paper to reveal a note from Asher, which says, is that something? I think it's a parenthetical. Nope, it's still just an action. Okay. Unwads the paper and to reveal a note from Asher. Okay, and technically this could be, yeah, this is a parenthetical. So Mr. Flack is a robot. Okay, and then what do we do there? What do we do after that? So what does Gabe do? I think we just wrote that he dismisses it.
He shakes his head like weirdo.
Yeah. Gabe dismisses Asher's accusation and returns to his work. Gabe notices a small glitch in Mr. Flack and repeats himself. Okay, so going back, let's see here. Gabe wads up the paper again and dismisses Asher's claim.
More of an accusation. Just kidding. It's fine.
Yeah. Okay. So Gabe wads up paper again and dismisses Asher's claim. Okay. And we can just say, like, maybe he's trying to be funny, but like maybe Gabe just gives him a kind of a you're ridiculous type of look. giving him a "you're ridiculous" look. Okay. All right. So I think we got a good start here. And we'll just kind of keep going. We got a good flow, and we can fill in the blanks and like add more dialogue when we get there. But I don't see a lot of dialogue happening in here. I think the only dialogue I'm hearing is like at first is just Mr. Flack trying to explain fractions in a very monotone way, and that monotone becomes more monotone and glitchy the more we get into it. But I'm excited. I think this will be good, guys. So let's finish this on Tuesday, and then I'd love to have a script by the end of the week next week, and then we can go from there. Okay, sound good?
Yeah, they had a question.
Well,
Yes. Question.
You should just take one of your lessons, like your normal lessons, and make it like as boring as you possibly can.
Yep, I'm planning on it.
Lots of glitches.
That'll be a stretch because my lessons aren't boring. So, so I'm gonna have to like be really. I have to be a really good actor. So.
Or just be your brothers. Just kidding.
I won't tell him you said that. All right, guys. Have a good weekend. I'll see you on Tuesday.